We continue on with our 2022 Minnesota Vikings positional review. We move on to the wide receivers. We'll break down the wide receivers of the Minnesota Vikings right after this. In the second installment of our 2022 positional reviews, last week we did quarterbacks. Make sure to go check that video out if you haven't already. But this week we move on to wide receivers. Obviously, as we know, when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings wide receiver position, we have non-arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL today with Justin Jefferson coming off a monster season. Obviously, a slow last few weeks, didn't quite get that 2,000 mark. But even in his third season, getting 1,800 yards, doing what he did this year, some of the catches he made, man, Justin Jefferson, man, is just he's a different animal. So good at what he does, and I think he's only going to get better this year. I think this offseason, if me, obviously never played wide receiver, never really played football. What I think this offseason, the big focus for him, and I know it's gonna be on his mind, is how he can beat the double and triple teams, because there's got to be a way to be able to do it. And if you're gonna, and because people have done it in the past, with receivers have done it in the past, and if there's any receiver that's gonna figure it out, I think it's gonna be Justin Jefferson. Obviously, part of that is his counterparts, the people that played with him this year. When we get into the stats and stuff, we'll see. He didn't get the same amount of help that he's had in years past, especially not what he had in college. So, him and Kirk Cousins seem to finally have a connection. The first couple seasons, kind of, questioning, because I know Kirk and Thielen had a good connection. With JJ, we were kind of wondering, would it keep growing? And I mean, obviously, we've seen it. It has. So, overall, though, I mean, Justin Jefferson just brings this wide receiver group up to the top of the mountain. But obviously, as we'll talk about, he needs a little bit of help as well. That's my spiel. What are your thoughts on wide receiver play this year?
It's funny that you said unarguably, because when we did this video last year, I think we started off with more like arguably the best wide receiver. I probably said like, oh, he is the best wide receiver, but last year it was arguably he was the best wide receiver, and I agree with you. I think it's no argue. I think Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the league, and I think a lot of people notice that, not just Viking fans. So that's fantastic. But just like you said, I mean, Justin Jefferson, absolute monster. As far as like the double teams and the triple teams, I do think, Hawkinson definitely helps, but obviously the tight end only, it's different than having another, like a wide receiver too, or something like that.
Especially when they can stretch the field.
Right. And I mean, you look at the Bengals and, they have Higgins and they have Chase, obviously. So you have another guy that would probably be a wide receiver one.
Will be a wide receiver one on another team eventually.
On another team. Yeah.
Higgins ain't. They're not keeping both.
Right. So I do think. So that's kind of like, that's the question: is it time for us to try to find ourselves another wide receiver too? I don't know whether that's in the draft or in free agency. I don't really know what there is. I think we kind of looked into who was out there for free agency. There's not a ton. Yeah. So I don't know how we're going to handle that for sure. But that's something that I think we'll need to do, especially for Justin Jefferson to not get double coverage or triple coverage. But besides that, let's jump into the videos and then we'll end it with some grades on how we think the wide receiver did as a core. Is that how we did that last year? Did we do wide receiver?
I think we went player by player and then
kind of give a grade for each player. All right, we'll do that. But before we do that, I want to thank everybody for watching the GG Sports podcast of the Minnesota Vikings, where we endure heartbreaks but always bleed purple. Subscribe, please. We give away Justin Jefferson rookie cards on our live shows, so there's plenty of reasons why you should subscribe, but you should just be subscribed anyways. Let's jump right into this.
So first one, obviously, start out with Justin Jefferson. Receptions 128, first in the league. 1,809 yards, 106 per game, first in the league. 8 touchdowns, the one rushing touchdown, 90.4 PFF grade, which is 5th in the NFL for wide receivers.
And then I want to early spoiler. There's actually another player on this team that had a higher PFF grade than Justin Jefferson, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah, for sure. But excuse me. As we mentioned, Justin Jefferson had a slow last few weeks. Obviously, against Green Bay, say what you will, they did a good job shutting him down. only played half of the game in Chicago. He went on. I mean, he could have had more receiving touchdowns. Obviously, he was putting up a ton of yardage, but he went on like a 3 or 4 week stretch where he just didn't score. He scored the one rushing touchdown, but no receiving touchdowns.
We had 2 touchdowns in the first game against the Packers, and then he went in a stretch after that with no touchdowns, and then he kind of came
but
back
still
again.
putting up monster yardage. I mean, except for a couple, the game against the Eagles and the game against the Lions, he didn't do much. But overall, though, like just this season by Justin Jefferson was just special. I mean, I remember there was one week, I think against Detroit when we lost, Kirk had like 465 passing yards and Justin Jefferson had like 260 some, 80 some receiving yards. And it was like the quietest like 200-yard receiving game you'd ever heard just because we lost.
It's so weird
we were looking at the defense at that time.
Yeah.
But just, man, what this man can do is just special. I mean, we talked at nauseum about the catch against Buffalo. Just it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how good at football this guy is. And it's a guy a lot of Vikings fans didn't really want going. I mean, some didn't want going into the draft. They thought he was just a slot receiver. But look at him now.
Yeah, dude, he can do absolutely everything. He's incredible. But no, what you were saying with the what was it? I forgot what it was. Anyways, I don't know, man. Justin Jefferson is he's just something different. Oh, that's what I want to say. You were talking about like, that was that 230-yard was the quietest game. The thing that's crazy about him is that he'll have like 150-yard games is like pretty normal for him. And as Viking fans, you watch that at 150 yards, it doesn't really phase you like seeing him have that many yards. And that's crazy when you think about like any other wide receiver in the league. There's most wide receiver ones might not even go the entire season with a 150-yard game. So that's what's really special about him is especially like as Viking fans, and we've always been spoiled with wide receivers. Obviously with Randy Moss and Justin Jefferson and Chris Carter and all those guys.
Stephon Diggs,
before him, Adam Thielen, who we'll talk about soon. But it's just there's something different with him where he just gets 150 yards every other game, and it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. 100 yards does not seem that big of a deal at all for him. Like you just expect it to get at least 100. Obviously, look at that 106 yards per game. So
yeah, I mean, if we're going into grading with Justin Jefferson's season, I mean, I know we did like an A through F thing last year, but I think you got to give him an S ranking. Like just make that next tier above, and you might even just go S plus because
he's the best in the entire NFL. What do you do? And not just the best in the entire NFL. Nobody in the history of the NFL has had a start of the career as a wide receiver as he has. So it's like he is literally on his own island. He's a one of one. No one else has ever been like him in the history of the NFL.
Right.
Hopefully he keeps that going for a long career, and then we could someday he could be in the conversation for the GOAT. At least for now, he has the best start towards it ever. So
yeah, I mean, at the rate he's climbing 1,400, 1,600, 1,800 yards, he'll get 2,000 next year. No question.
Dude, I don't know, man. At this pace, he might have a 3,000-yard season.
Right? Well, but either way, great season by Justin Jefferson, and find any way you can.
There's just nothing else, like you can't stop talking about him, man. It's just you can talk about him all day long.
Pay him all the money.
Pay him everything he needs. Everything he needs.
Yep. So now, as we said, a lot of Justin Jefferson wouldn't have to deal with as many double and triple teams if we had a solid number 2 option. And moving on to our next guy on our list here to talk about, Adam Thielen.
This one hurts at one point.
This one hurts to talk about. And we're not going to get into the offseason drama if he's going to stay or go, because that's, we've talked about that before already. We're just looking at it from this perspective. 17 games this year, 70 receptions, 716 yards, 6 touchdowns, 65 PFF grade. You look at that, you think that's pretty solid, right? But we're used to Thielen having, at least 1,000-yard season, double-digit touchdown receptions. Obviously, as we know, he slowed down a little bit with age and the injuries he's experienced in the past. It's unfortunate because we all know how great of a person and player Adam Thielen is, and in his prime he was, and he's still serviceable. I think he still wants to play. I think he will be a solid number 3 receiver on a different team, but his time in Minnesota may be up, and it's unfortunate, but it's not the season that you were hoping from Adam Thielen. Like, you're looking at it, if he could just bounce back, that we'd be fine. And, it just didn't happen this year. And whether it's because he's upset about his usage, whether that's the problem, or if it is just age slowing him down, not the season that you're typically expecting from Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think his usage wasn't up as especially not compared to the other seasons, not even close. His touchdowns weren't as high, a lot of that stuff. But at the same time, it's pretty obvious that you can see his age a little bit compared to years past. He just wasn't getting as open, all that kind of stuff. So, obviously that's gonna happen when you sucks to say, but when you get how old is he? 32?
Something like that.
When you
Yeah.
get around 32, I guess you just start losing abilities. That's some bullshit, but
yeah.
30.
And it's unfortunate. And I don't even want to give him a grade because I don't want him to see this and have me
No,
have to
we
give
love
him
Adam Thielen. He's always gonna be
yeah,
that hometown boy,
for
man. I
sure.
mean,
And I mean this he's gonna I bet you anything he'll sign with the Vikings to retire. I think he'll end up being in the Ring of Honor, obviously, just
he will
because of
not go to the
everything he's done
Packers.
with this
Some
team.
people
If he
saying
ends up with the
Packers.
Packers, I'm gonna be upset.
I will be
Cry
upset.
a
There's
little
no way because he's had
Well,
to be a
if
Viking fan. He was a Viking fan
right.
growing up. Like he
But I guess
has to
his wife
hate.
is from Wisconsin, so his
That's
wife's
not
from a
good
Packer
enough. That's
family of
not good
Packers
enough.
fans. But please, Adam, if you're watching this, I will up your grade to a B if you don't go to Green.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, just for the season, I would have to give Adam Thielen a C, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I just it's unfortunate, but a
I'll
C
give him
grade is
a
where I think he.
I think I have to give him a C as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't know if I was expecting him to bounce back and have that double-digit touchdown reception thing. I don't know. It was unfortunate. It was unfortunate.
Yeah, at
Unfortunately,
least we saw him
unfortunate.
healthy for the most part, but it was just obvious when you're watching the games. It was pretty obvious that it was JJ, and then we got Hawkinson. It was kind of JJ and
Yeah.
Hawkinson, and we just wouldn't see Thielen a lot. And obviously, you can say usage or whatever, but it doesn't always mean that. Sometimes it's just you're not getting open, and I think it was a little bit of both for him. So
Right. And then there's
we
more
gotta really see
drops
that.
than he normally has too. So
Yeah, that's one
it was
thing you
just
never see out of him is drops.
it was just unfortunate.
I still think he can be a solid wide receiver, and I
Mhm.
still think he could have a bounce back year as far as like being a wide receiver too. I think maybe that with our contract and everything we have with him, I don't think that would be with us.
No.
But I also still think that he is a solid red zone threat. So I do think he will help
Mhm.
a team, even if it ended up being us again. I still think he is good in the red zone.
For
But
sure. And honestly, I'm going to say the next guy's a little more disappointing even. I mean, it was
he's
more
a different
disappointing than this
kind
even.
of, but the next guy
KJ
is
Osborne here.
yeah,
Like
KJ
60
Osborne.
catches, 650, 5 touchdowns, 65.1 PFF grade. I mean, he had a couple huge games in there. Obviously, the
Yeah,
Colts
that's
game,
what it was.
he was instrumental in getting us back into that game. What, 159
Right.
yards? Did he have 1 or 2 touchdowns that game? I don't remember.
I think he had 2.
But either way, then he had the game-winning catch against Detroit, and he's done that in the past. He did it last year, 2021 season against Carolina. It's just, but and I'm looking at this from an expectation thing, where like his first season he came in as a returner, not a very good returner, didn't show anything as a receiver. We didn't get to see him. Next season training camp, he blows up. He comes in, puts up a good season last year, and we were both thinking like this guy could be to overtake Adam Thielen for the wide receiver 2 spot, and he just didn't make the jump I wanted to see him make. So when I say it's more disappointing than when I say it's a disappointing season, I just mean from a perspective of expectation, to where we're expecting him to become that wide receiver 2 on this team, and just didn't fully take those reins. And again, it might just be with Kevin O'Connell really game planning around Justin Jefferson and forcing the ball in him at certain moments. Like I get that, but also when he wasn't getting any yardage, who was making up for him? And Adam Thielen against Detroit that first game, he had 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So, and obviously KJ got the game winner, but I don't know. It's just, I wish we would have seen more is the point I'm trying to get at here. And it kind of, is what it is, I guess. But yeah.
We did kind of, like you said, we had higher expectations for him. We were thinking like, oh, he could pop to be that wide receiver too. Not saying he can't ever be that, but he did seem to decline in it. And again, with him, I think it could be a usage thing, like you said, with Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson, especially when Hawk got in there. Earlier in the season, it was definitely a usage thing because it just didn't seem like we were going to our other wide receivers at all, really. It was kind of just Justin Jefferson, and we've talked about it earlier in the season. But for him, it's just, I don't know. His routes aren't completely there yet.
And it's just, he just doesn't get separation.
And it doesn't get a lot of separation. I like his hands weren't as like last year. I really liked how he was catching the ball. He had some drop passes this year, but I do like him as like a run after the catch. Like once he gets that ball in his hands, he goes head right downfield, just powerful wide receiver, and I really like that about him. But the thing with him, so I'm not like I'm definitely disappointed earlier on. I felt better with him at the end of the season. It did seem like we were trying to start getting him involved a little bit, because I think in the first, like, let's look here, first 15 games, he probably had, I don't know, like a few hundred yards, a couple hundred yards combined and 2 touchdowns. And then the last 5 games of the regular season, he had 3 of his touchdowns. He had like 400 yards.
Right. And I think it's just
So he took a step, and he did have 2 really big games. So it's like, all right, we can see what KJ's potential is, but we just did not see it for a majority of the season, and we were expecting it.
And I just also think that Kirk maybe just didn't you didn't see him make a lot of contested catches, because maybe I feel like Kirk has this like a high level of trust in JJ, where if he's covered, I can chuck it up. He's going to go get it. Adam Thielen, I think he also feels that way, where it's like, I can give him a chance.
Hawkinson, maybe a little bit too much.
Right. But I feel like he just didn't have that with KJ. Like I think when he was covered up or tight coverage, he didn't have the feeling of, I can just toss the ball up, he's going to go get it. And I think that might be an issue as well.
Yeah. And I still, like, from a fan perspective watching the game, I kind of feel that a little bit too. Well, I was hoping not, but like during the season, it was like, I don't know, throwing it up to KJ, you're like, is he going to get it? Where JJ, it's like, you're almost, even when you think he's not going to get it, he still does.
Right. But if I got to grade the season, I'm going to give him a C as well, just because I was just below expectations for me.
Definitely a C. Definitely a C. So you got A for Jefferson, C for Thielen, and C for Osborne, and there was really nothing else left for a wide receiver,
and that is why JJ
got one
double and triple covered a lot, just because how else are they going to beat us?
Well, we had Rager, and I didn't put him on here. Who else do we have? Rager, Naylor.
Which, speaking of Naylor, let's bring him up.
Yeah, we'll bring Naylor up. So we have Naylor here. The reason why is because 9 receptions, 179 yards, 1 touchdown,
mainly in like 3 games.
In 3 games, yeah, I think he did play 3 games.
The key fake punt reception in a game early on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. But he had a PFF grade of 91.6, which is 2nd in the NFL. So that's why I had to put him on here. He's the other wide receiver that has a higher PFF grade than Justin Jefferson. And because if you go on PFF and you look at wide receivers PFF ranking or whatever, usually I didn't think they put a lot of players who didn't get a lot of snaps, but I guess he was worthy enough to make that list, sitting there at number 2. So I have to put him in there, especially because we were talking about the wide receiver too, and we do want a guy opposite of Justin Jefferson like that. And there is always still that possibility that could be Naylor, and he could be on our team already.
They call him Speedy for a reason. I mean, Justin Jefferson, as good as he is, we need that deep threat. We need that guy that can just
that straight speed. Yeah, so Justin Jefferson's fast, but he's not the fastest wide receiver. He can do absolutely everything, and he's pretty fast. Yeah, he's not like a Tyrie or any of those guys, which we obviously saw when. He did that 40-yard dash challenge against, God, who was it? I don't know if you remember. I think it was last offseason. I think Devin White was a part of it. Goodwin, I don't know, a bunch of them, and he came in last, I think.
But I mean, I don't think you can really grade him. I'm going to inconclusive. We'll see. Hopefully,
definitely inconclusive. But I'll give him I'll still give him a little grade. We'll give him a B for when he's actually had a chance. Technically, his stats say he should get an A for whenever he has a chance, but obviously can't just give him an A.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's just give him a B for hope.
Yeah. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. But obviously, Minnesota Vikings wide receiver core, led by Justin Jefferson, and he just didn't get the help that he needed. So obviously, it'll be interesting to see how we address a wide receiver position this offseason, because we really need to do it, whether it's draft, free agency, or what have you. But that's our thoughts on the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers in 2022. Let us know your grades for the receivers down in the comment section, and we'll see you guys next time on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.